Hello and welcome to Goose Live. I am your host, Charlie Stivers, also a publisher of Goose Magazine, and very excited about today's episode. We have a Web3 blockchain crypto founder with us talking about the niche in the healthcare industry that is going to basically change the model of what we're experiencing as healthcare patients and users. So, you know how Google and Facebook basically suck us in because it's free, and they turn around and sell our data to advertisers so they can sell more stuff to us. Well, there's a similar model going on in the healthcare world where, as patients, that data that we share with our providers, they turn around and also share that or sell that data. And they're estimating that per patient, that could be around $30,000. So, what my guest has done and her company, JennyCo, have changed that model, and it's going to be exciting to jump into this and see how that can benefit us, the users. So we will be right back after this, and I will introduce Jenny, our guest. And we're back. So today's guest is Jenny Diggles, and she's the co-founder of JennyCo, a soon-to-be-released Web3 app that allows users to store their medical and wellness information securely on the blockchain and through the app, which allows them to earn rewards for leasing of their health care data and for using this personalized AI-generated recommendations. So, Jenny, I want to welcome you to the show. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Charlie. It's great to be here with you.
Yeah, excited to have you here. I got to meet you a little over a year ago at Ethereum Denver, and you kind of teased this concept, JennyCo, and I learned a little bit about your past too. But it's so cool to like just being able to follow your progress along the way. And congratulations, you're almost there.
We are almost there. And I'll tell you what, it couldn't have been a better time to do it. Not only in terms of, I think, the adoption that I think we'll see of this, but also the technology and how fast things have changed have allowed us to actually accelerate a lot of our development too. So I'm thrilled that this is the timing for JennyCo.
Yeah, it's so exciting. Why don't you share with us a little bit of your backstory, and so we can get to know you a little bit better.
For sure. So I'm largely an entrepreneur, and it's interesting to call myself that at times because really what I am is just curious. I get very, very curious about something. And so in the case of crypto, I got curious about it back in 2012. And then really starting to understand blockchain, how that fits in was really compelling to me. Part of my background in the companies that I've started, a lot of them were very rooted in Web 2 theology, I'll call it, because there really was a mind frame to Web 2. So I had a social media agency that I helped build. I went to a company that was focusing on single sign-on using social logins. But as I was going through all these different companies and noticing there's a real trend here where the goal is to grab as much data as possible off of every single person as possible, and then try to turn that into something useful. And the way that these companies would try to frame it is, oh, we're doing it for the people. It makes it easier for them. They get better ads. When really there's just a ton of money being made on the back end. So, as somebody who actively I just have blacked out ads. I know a lot of people have at this point. We just don't even see them anymore. It's like, that's not good enough. So I was watching this real, just like hand over fist land grab, trying to take people's data and turn it into value for that company. So when I met my business partner, Dr. Nova, I was actually working in the cannabis industry, helping build different funds to invest in that industry. I was super curious. And that's also a part of my desire to really see people's health improve, because being a part of that industry, why I got into it was because I believed so much in the potential for the cannabis plant to help heal people, to create new products, building materials, all sorts of stuff from hemp and THC plants. But anyway, so I had this real drive towards seeing people become healthier and better. And I was connected with this doctor in San Diego. And so he was the co-founder of a genetics lab. And what we decided to focus on was unique, novel genome tests. Most people don't really know themselves. Our genetics are rather complex and they control a fair amount of what happens within our body. So we decided, let's start with cannabis, help people feel more comfortable about that and get a better idea medically if it would benefit them. At this point in time, most doctors still in this country, if you want to get your card, they just say sure, yes or no. And then there's not a lot of help in figuring out the next step. So we wanted to help people find the next step. So we just kept building this company, realized as we were doing it how important the data was. This data is so important. Brands are going to want to know how their customers are responding to cannabis so they can better tailor products. Then that really took us down this whole different train to where we are today. So, watching these threads of my own life in retrospect come together, my desire for people to not be giving up power that they didn't know they have, for people to be healthier, and then to personalize what those outcomes are, all came together into where we are today with JennyCo.
Yeah, that's super exciting. The good old power of cannabinoids.
I
Big
tell you
believer
what,
in
yeah.
that myself. That's
Yes.
cool. So you brought up the whole genome DNA sequencing thing. Maybe can you lay out a little bit about, if you want to call it Web 2, and what we've experienced as Ancestry and 23,
Oh, yeah.
and kind of relate that to where you guys are changing that model.
Absolutely. So, it was interesting to me when a number of years ago, all of a sudden there's Ancestry, 23andMe, they're just on the scene. And it felt like literally everyone and my mother were buying these tests for people, with the outcome primarily being focused on your heritage. Where did your relatives come from, with some other information in there. I never actually took one of those tests. And it
Me
was
neither.
because, yeah, it was an interesting thing. Everyone else in my family did, like, well, why didn't you do it? And quite honestly, it's actually not that interesting because my family's Finnish, and finished genes they're just like you're 100%. There's not a lot that's that interesting there. So anyway, what I learned was that they weren't making money on the tests. They're breaking even on the sale of those tests. What they're making money on is the sale out the door. And so in the intro, you mentioned $30,000. That's because 23andMe had found for certain genetic records, they could sell them for up to $30,000 for one person's genetic record. That's crazy. That person has no clue. They're not getting any of that money. And so that's why the valuation of these companies just became so big, the sale of that data. That felt like theft. It just did. It just, something was so wrong about it to me. And so instead of that model, what we decided was, well, yeah, genetics are very interesting. It's a great set of data. It basically determines about 40% of how things are going to operate with the body, with the other 60 coming from what we choose to do. But we decided, well, what if we allowed people to take their data and monetize it themselves? Because these groups that are out there, they're not going anywhere. Everybody's buying this sort of data. Everybody, from Google to pharmaceutical companies to the DoD, like this is a big pot of valuable information. So it became very fun to start to piece together a business model that wasn't just genetics, but also other aspects of somebody's health that empowered them, that then once they get it in one place, they're able to start to gain back insights around their personal health, recommendations of things they should try or do. And then if they so choose, they can lease the data. One of the things we never, ever will do within the JennyCo platform is expose their data or make it completely copied, grabbable by an entity. Instead, we focus on the insights and we take, what the algorithms are that somebody wants to run and find out the insights, and we deliver insights back. So we wanted to change that model. And I feel like if people can be healthier and wealthier, that is just ultimately the goal of what we're aiming to do here.
Yeah, absolutely. And the whole model behind Web3 is, benefits for the user, and either through rewards or incentives. And the incentive models is already proven. Can you maybe expand on that a little bit, or do you want to get to that eventually?
No, happy to get there. Yes, we look at the Web2 model. There was no incentivization. The incentives were, you get a free platform where you can connect with your friends and you can see their pictures. Cool. But there was no monetary transaction there that benefits the user. And so as we look at this new Web3 way forward, we can still have apps. We can still have ways to connect and do the things that we're really enjoying doing online. But instead of being the product, we actually become the earner of whatever that benefit is. And so that to me was the biggest game changer. If we hold consumers at the center of what we do, if I hold myself and you and everybody else who's using this at the center of it and do our very best to make decisions that are best for us, it's the golden rule, do unto others as you'd have done unto you. That's exactly what we want to do here. We really feel like we're going to have the most dynamic living set of human health data available that could become worth so much to each individual person. So the way we work it within our ecosystem is if somebody does want to participate in, say, like a study, and they qualify for it, they fit whatever the demographics, psychographics, physical attributes, whatever it may be, they fit that, they can join the study. And within that, they stake some of their own JennyCo tokens in that, and their data comes along with it into this pool. At the end of that, they get back their stake tokens as well as the rewards for putting their data into that pool. It can also take the form of not just crypto rewards back to them, but also specific products, product recommendations, product creation. We know that there will be people who will use the platform to create customized products to literally send to people to get feedback, or to give them trials of things so that they can understand better. Did this work for you? Did you like it? How did you feel? So what I love is that puts the consumer in control. They get to choose, they get to earn, and it's not their data is not being abused. Our data has been abused for a very long time.
Yeah, and it's definitely a perfect example of that exchange of value, which this whole model is about too. Are you able to talk about the company that you partnered with for the testing?
Yeah, so Michael's old company was called Pathway Genomics. And we created our own spin out of that called Cannabis DNA. That was our initial company that we did there. But those tests were very different. They were not tests that were, hey, I'm Hungarian. They were tests that were telling people the types of food that would best suit them, the best exercises. It was so granular. I did one of their
Mhm.
tests and I got back something like a 200-page report that was so detailed around the types of exercises that might benefit me the most, what types of food I should be looking to eat and what I should be looking to avoid. That is so helpful. You know, a
Oh,
couple of years ago,
allergies.
oh, food allergies. I mean, come on,
Yeah.
that's a big one. I've done so many food allergy tests, and there was some point in time where I
Yeah.
was eating so many eggs. I was like on this eggs and pineapple kick. I just like I don't know. And of course, I go get a food allergy test. Like, you're allergic to eggs and pineapple. But anyway, for me, I figured out what was going on, the root cause of that. But these tests, these very specialized genetic tests, can give us information that truly changes our lives. I took one a couple of years ago called the Detoxigenomic test by a company called Genova, and it showed me I had a couple of genetic defects that were causing systemic issues that I had been playing whack-a-mole with for years. And once I figured out
Mm.
what was going on and how simple it was to fix it, I was I was just, first of all, overwhelmed with joy that I could actually,
Yeah.
wow, okay, this is going to be solved. This isn't a thing that I have to live with for the rest of my life. And it also made me just want to like shout it from the rooftops, like, know yourself, get to know yourself, take a
Mhm.
really in-depth genetic test that's going to tell you something that gives something substantive to work with and to improve against.
Yeah, that's another thing I love about this industry and the model is it's a huge lesson in personal responsibility. So you guys are really embracing that concept with your app and how you can drive engagement with the user and the community.
Oh yeah, personal responsibility is everything to me. Like, it's we I feel like I had often outsourced a lot of my personal choices to somebody else. A doctor would tell me, do this, don't do that, and I would do it. And I didn't have enough information to make my own qualified decision. So I'm trusting others. And at times it has worked and at other times it really hasn't. And so personal responsibility, taking ownership of our physical self as well as our financial self is important. You know,
Mhm.
it's challenged. I don't I have to say it's hasn't been a popular thing for a lot of people in the past to just take control of that. It has to happen now. You know, it really
It
does.
really
And
does.
crypto is a big part of that for me. Crypto requires a high level of personal responsibility. You know, holding things on your own wallet, losing keys, you're lost. You can't call up the bank and say you got locked out of your account. There's nobody to talk to. And while that's scary for people, it's also incredibly freeing. And so there's a very wonderful symbiotic relationship between personal responsibility and freedom. And if we don't want personal responsibility and we want centralized control, we're giving up a lot of freedom. We're giving up the keys to our own castles, to our own money, our own well-being. And so that's a shift that I feel is changing. And I think we're going to see a really big change coming over the next couple of years as more and more people come over to that way of being. And instead of outsourcing, insourcing. Start with yourself.
Yeah, and I'm glad you made that point, especially from a women's perspective. One of the things that we're seeing a lot of, yes, crypto is very diverse because it's global, but we're not seeing enough women's leadership.
Mm.
So thank you for that. And and that's especially talking about health and wellness. We also see that women are the decision makers when it comes to wellness decisions in the family. So I think that's even more empowering. You being the face of the company or one of the faces of the company.
It's so funny you say the whole, women make those decisions because I definitely, it's just my husband and I. We don't have children, but I hand him every morning and night these handfuls of pills of supplements. He doesn't even know what he's taking. And I'm thank God he trusts me, but I'm constantly looking out for that kind of, what supplements should we be taking? How can we better improve our sleep hygiene? What are the ways that we can just overall feel healthier and better? And I just make those decisions and kind of drive them home. You know,
How much CBD should we take?
exactly. I literally the other
Yep.
night I gave my husband CBD. He was like, "Oh, sometimes I get the Sunday
Hmm.
scaries." I'm like, "I'm going to give you some CBD tonight, and it's going to be a little bit more than you think you want." but this is what's going to help you. So it's so funny. I do feel
Mm-hmm.
that in general, women in the household do play that role of the caretaker in a way, but the overseer of making sure that everybody is staying healthy and moving forward, eating food, getting rest, drinking water, that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
So yeah,
fresh ingredients. Yeah,
yes.
absolutely. So can you share a little bit more like your vision with the app and
Mm-hmm.
like the value it's going to bring to us, maybe some of the features and benefits for the
Yeah,
user?
absolutely. So the vision is I mentioned it earlier, is for everyone to truly become healthier and wealthier. I want that to happen on an individual basis. I want people to feel so good when they're done when they get out of the app, when they're using it and engaging with it, that they feel this great benefit. And like it's really truly a companion and an assistant to them. And so as we look at the features within the app, there's so many areas we're going to go. So I'm not going to speak too much to what the potentials are as we work out some of these newer
Mm-hmm.
ideas that our team has just come up with in the past few weeks. They're awesome, and I hate like teasing things like that, but my God, some of these concepts are great. The core of the app, when we launch it, is going to have a few main pieces in it. It's going to have a place for people to start storing their medical data. We call it the lifeline. And so as they're doing anything, they're taking an aspirin, they're going to the hospital, they're checking in on something and they have new blood work, that all gets compiled into this part of the app called the Lifeline. They'll have a wallet where they'll be able to see their crypto and manage that aspect of it. There's community. So there will be a couple of initial groups that people can join. There will be one overall big JennyCo bucket group, and we're going to define a few other ones as well. And right now we're in the process of that. And just to note, like in that, this isn't just about our physical well-being, it's our mental well-being too. So we're very focused on mental health and how that plays a role in our overall well-being. And yeah, so there's going to be quite a couple of core aspects to this. So ways for people to get their data in there, see their rewards, and start to join pools and communities of other people. And then from there, it just really starts to expand. So what we're hoping for, and the way we think of this app, is like a companion. Like I mentioned, we want people to feel like this is a very personalized companion for them. Oh, it will have an AI component built in as well. And we are figuring out a way to kind of keep that as a walled garden so people's information isn't going out and back into any sort of other systems. That's such a key part for us in all of this. It's funny how I barely even mentioned it because it's like breathing to us now that blockchain is a core aspect of what we've built here. People's data will be secure because of all the rules that we have to comply with around HIPAA. But in addition, there's that layer of blockchain. So that's also in there. But we want people to feel like this is specific for them and that they feel comfortable getting insights and asking for feedback based off of their data within our platform. So that's what I really like too. It's no longer just about, well, in general, what helps people lose weight. But no, for me specifically, what's going to help me lose weight, what that might be for me might be different than what it is for you. And it's not as simple as just, telling someone to cut calories and exercise more, which is the general rule. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
looking forward to that. I'm really hoping that people find great personal ways to care for themselves. I would love that if somebody, a year after using it, that was in a dramatically different and better health space than they were when they started, that would feel so good. I would also love to see people earn money, earn crypto for their data, and to see that benefit their life to make it even just a little bit easier. So there's a lot that I'd like to see from it, even down to like, gosh, just yesterday, my husband went to the dentist. He came home and he was like, I can't believe it. Every single time I go, they make me fill out a ton of forms every single time. And he's like, I wish, that your app was out there and it was an easy way for them to just scan a QR code and everything's updated. I'm like, I know, we'll get there. So there's a lot of potential
Yeah.
extensions of where this goes. The medical industry is huge. So there's really no limit to the potential of how we can build out this app. But we wanted to start with core features and then go from there, really see what people are using and adopting and requesting. And before we pre-build things, having been in tech in the past, I've at times
Yeah.
built things that I thought were a really great feature and nobody uses it. So I want this
Mm-hmm.
to also be very back to the community, very community driven. What does the community need?
Yeah. I mean, how cool is it going to be when people get those results because of the app, just like we experienced in hemp and CBD. You would hear this great story like, oh my gosh, I can, my pain's gone. But, in this, solution, you guys are, really solving some big problems. Maybe they detected, a serious illness or like a major allergy that they never knew of. So I think the stories that come from this are going to be like most impactful.
Oh, I hope so. I really do. That to me is what gives me the drive, the desire to move this thing forward, is the potential impact it could have on a person's life.
Yeah.
I've seen the impact I've had just from like that genetic test I mentioned earlier and making simple changes with some supplements. And I'm like, whoa, I feel worlds different. And if those were just some very small, simple things that I could do, what else? What else? So I'm constantly digging for myself. Like, what else can I try? What else would help me out here? But I want people to feel that also for themselves. I think health is a hard one. It's very personal. I can think back to so many conversations I've had with different friends where they've learned certain things about themselves, what does work for them and what doesn't, but it's been a real hard trial and error. I've also had other friends who've gotten really bad advice from, their physician, and it hasn't worked out, so there's I think a deep desire that we all probably have within ourselves, whether we've recognized it or not, to truly know ourselves. And then from there, be able to make the best decisions we possibly can for our overall well-being.
Yeah. And I'm glad you brought that up, because in our back and forth conversations in the past, I brought up the point how iatrogenics, this misdiagnosis, misprescription from healthcare professionals, is actually a top 10 cause
I think
of
it's
death.
like number 5 in our country.
Right?
Maybe it's a 5th or 6th.
Yes.
It's huge.
I know. And then no one, and the NIH doesn't talk about it anymore, because it used to be up there. But yeah, that's pretty scary.
Can I tell you a joke?
Okay.
So in a graduating class of doctors, what do they call the top of the class graduate? They call him doctor or her. And then what do they call the person who's at the bottom of the class who barely passed? Doctor. So it's a mixed bag. Just because somebody finished their schooling doesn't mean they're actually good at what they do. And it's, I found that I would go back and forth finding different doctors. If I found someone I really didn't jive with, I had one doctor in Portland when I first went to go get my medical cannabis card. And that was at the time where it wasn't recreationally legal. I want to say it was 2013 or 2014. And I went to the doctor that I had seen for, I have a cold or I have allergies or whatever. And I explained to her what I wanted to do. And she knew I had TMJ. It was one of the conditions that Oregon was covering at that time for a medical card. And I said, I think I'd really like to try cannabis. And she lectured me so hard. It was unreal. It was like a flip switched off in her. And she's like, well, this hasn't been approved by the FDA and this hasn't been studied extensively. And I think that it could lead to cancer and all sorts of bad issues. I also think it leads to other drug abuse. And I'm like, whoa, oh my God. Like, okay, you're not my person.
Right.
So yeah, I was like, all right, this clearly is not the route I want to go. And so I did find a doctor that was really, really great, that did take a thorough assessment. And I could tell that he was doing a very thorough assessment. This was not just a given, oh, if you come in and you give me the $100, I'm going to give you your card. No, he was like really, really checking out my mouth gear, all the stuff that I have to wear because of TMJ. And so, it was just interesting to hear the perspective of 2 different doctors. They're both
Absolutely.
doctors. Yeah.
So one of the things that I've discovered in evangelizing about, this whole evolution, I call crypto and blockchain just the evolution of the internet. And I bring up JennyCo as one of the examples, like, hey, healthcare data is coming on the blockchain. And immediately they put up this roadblock, like, I'm not putting my healthcare records on the internet. So can you talk techie to us for a minute and give us that distinction between, the internet, we're not like posting all this stuff on Facebook or whatever, and the blockchain?
Oh, absolutely. So first of all, to those people, I would say your data is already out there. It's already been bought and sold. It's already existing on multiple servers in so many places. It just doesn't have your name on it. So you should be offended by that to start. It's already out there. So when we look at what we're doing with the blockchain, what the blockchain does is it essentially makes it, the data isn't centralized. It's broken up, it's proven, and the person has ownership of it, to the point where if they said, I don't want this to exist anywhere, and they hit the delete button, it deletes all of it. It's not copied in any other place. It's not stored in any other place. It is truly deleted, which, to be honest, creates a little bit of a challenge for us, because as a business, if people keep deleting their data, and let's say they decide later, hey, actually, I want to go back to JennyCo. I want to go check it out again. They're going to have to start over. There is no storage on our end. Again, personal responsibility. So, when we look at blockchain, this is the biggest benefit of it. The best analogy that I really like is the one that my husband uses all the time, Benjamin. And he says using distributed ledger technology or blockchain is like a flock of birds. When it comes to trying to take them down, it's really hard. You might be able to get one or another, but you're not going to get the whole picture. You're not going to even be able to put that together. Versus what we currently work with, centralized systems, are like having a skyscraper that all you have to do is get to the right point of that thing and you can topple the whole building. The whole thing comes crashing down. So this is a wonderful benefit to us as people to be able to put data and secure it using the blockchain, because nobody can hack it. It literally becomes virtually unhackable. Quantum computers will even struggle with getting into this kind of information. So let alone just an average Joe who wants to access it. And that has happened a lot already in terms of centralized systems and people storing medical data in all one place. Those sorts of records have been hacked so many times. So this to me is a necessary must, so that people can feel they're in control of where it goes, who gets it, and if they want to delete it, it's gone. Right now, if I decided I wanted to delete my medical records, no way. There's got to be hundreds of copies.
Oh yeah.
Between all the states I've lived in and all the different professionals I've seen.
And paper copies, yeah.
Yep. Oh yeah.
So I guess the key word there is the HIPAA compliance.
Oh yeah.
That's obviously foundational to all this.
It is. HIPAA compliance, especially when you're dealing with medical data, is an absolute must. It's a requirement. So everything that we do, every server that we touch, every piece of technology has to be HIPAA compliant. We worked with Arizona State University, and they created and architected the first HIPAA compliant blockchain. And so that is a core backbone of what we are built upon as well. So it's great. There are other companies that are using blockchain to, securitize just genetic data or other pieces of it. But we're viewing this as a way for people to secure their own data in their one place under their control. And to me, that just feels really good. We had met a couple of people who were like, how do I get all my medical data together? And I'm like, well, you got to start calling some people, if you really want to start getting it. But also just starting where we are today, that we have so much information on us today. If you wear an Apple Watch or Fitbit, even just noting down what supplements we take, and then maybe doing one of the tests that we offer, that fresh new data is so important, and more so than our old electronic healthcare records, which may have been dealing with a past trauma that's no longer here, or a food allergy, like for me, that no longer exists. That stuff is a little bit dead. So where we are right now, the data people can collect on their daily basis is very, very valuable.
That's cool. So one of the perspectives I've always taken with crypto is crypto and Bitcoin can get to places around the world that fiat money cannot. So if we look at it as your JennyCo solution with underdeveloped countries, especially in their healthcare system, how do you see the JennyCo app driving that innovation in underdeveloped countries or regions?
It's a big deal. It's a big deal. Even in our own country, there's places where it's hard for people to get access to good healthcare, or they can't necessarily afford going to the doctor. And so, giving them tools is great. So we've been in conversations with other countries for a while now. And so a country like India, which is massive. I mean, it's almost hard to think about. I think there were 1.3 billion people, or I mean, it's so many people. They recognize that getting healthcare into people's hands, into their individual hands, is very important for the overall country. It's so big. There are a ton of people in rural places. So this is a way for them to start to get insight around themselves, to ask for advice. They can connect with telemedicine, teledoctors, specialists, so that it's not as hard. And then also through their data is valuable. It just as valuable as ours. And so they can also earn those rewards and then use those rewards to say, like, buy a genetic test or the food allergy test or pay for a telemedicine visit. That creates a huge opportunity for people to get access they didn't have before. I think the term is technically like health equity, and that means that everybody has equal access to good healthcare. So if we can provide an app that allows for that access, and that can be in the hands of anybody who has a smartphone and access to the internet, I think that we'll have some good benefit there. So we've been in conversations with some countries that are looking at this because they understand the health of their citizens matter, and the blockchain and securitizing that information, that data matters too. So we'll probably be engaging in some joint ventures in the future here. So these countries can leverage our platform and technology without any sort of infringing on our, anybody in the United States. There's like walled garden approaches that we'll have to take most likely, but I'm very excited about the potential of what it could do.
Absolutely. I bet that's kind of the fun part of this vision, because, it'll just happen kind of naturally. We're going through this quickly and super enjoyable. So I just want to make sure we give you the opportunity to talk about, how potential users and patients can embrace the JennyCo app, use it to their benefit, what's in it for them, and how do they get started when you're ready.
Yeah, so we should be ready here very soon. We have an MVP version of the app that's going to be going out to an initial test group of users, people who've been kind of with us for the journey for a while now, to get feedback before we, Charlie, before we push out a broad release. But that should be happening here, very, very soon. So in terms of, staying connected, we've got, Telegram channels, our Twitter, JennyCo official, or JennyCo, it's so funny, JennyCo Inc. I believe is all of our handles on everything. But now I'm embarrassed because I'm on all these channels all the time and I can't remember them exactly. But finding us on our social, going to our website and signing up to be aware of when we are launching the app is all great stuff to do. That'll also get you in tune with, as we launch a token, what exchanges will be on, all the information that's coming from this. Thank you, JennyCo Inc. Appreciate you, Charlie. So yeah, just follow us on there. That's really important. And then the other thing that we're looking at is for people to start having some ideas around how they think they want to use it. One of the ideas, for example, would be, let's say a company wants to embrace JennyCo and have their own kind of version of JennyCo just for their company, so that their employees can engage in, whether it's like competitions for their health or tracking their wellness and well-being, or even if it's like two companies who want to pit against each other, who are like, okay, let's see who can really maximize their health and well-being over a certain time period. So I really want people to start thinking about the different ways they'd like to use it and the ways that it could benefit them, and what would be really fun. And so we love that kind of feedback. I love seeing in our Telegram channel when people have recommendations and ideas for features. So that's what I'd look for too, is for people to say what they think would really benefit them the most.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting experiment in engagement and what people are open to talking about. I can see it even like getting into like subgroups where they want to talk about, diabetes treatments or, migraine sufferers, so that'll be kind of interesting to see how that evolves too.
It is. That's going to be, so in the crypto world, we use this term DAO, decentralized autonomous organization, but we're not going to use that inside of our app because that's not understandable by most. So we're just going to call them communities or groups, and people will be able to create their own. So while we're launching with just initial 3, in a future state, people will be able to create one. So let's say that, there's a group of women and we all went to the same college, we all lived in the same area, and now we all have the same condition. We want to put our data into a pool so that it can be studied and looked at through different layers and systems to see what's going on here. That's great. And there will be a lot of these. So we see these groups becoming rather diverse in terms of how they're focused and what the benefit is for the people who join those groups. as well as outside groups will come in and say, hey, I want to create a study of males 44 to 54 who are, currently training for marathons. And we find that we put out the blast who fits these qualifications, they can join those groups. But I think the specificity is going to get really interesting. And I can't even imagine how specific some of these groups are going to become.
Right.
There's orphan diseases. I just learned this term this last year because of Joe on our team in marketing. He's like, orphan diseases are a big deal. These are conditions that aren't big enough to get massive, notoriety is a weird term, but like, it's not a big thing like a cancer or diabetes or these larger conditions. They're smaller. And so people who have these orphan conditions that may only impact, say, 75,000, 100,000 people in the country, this we are hoping is a way for them to connect, to find each other, and to find some solutions. Because nobody is really throwing any big money at the smaller problems, but there's still problems for people. And so how can we help solve those, find solutions in a much easier and hopefully a faster way too? The other term that comes up a lot with what we're doing now is decentralized science. And just yesterday, we were on a call talking about how many medical papers are just flat out wrong. They were funded by somebody who was looking for a specific outcome, or the sources referenced are essentially a circular reference. So there's just a lot of them aren't even accurate. But with what we're doing and engaging the actual people who hold the data, I have this idea, this like inkling that we're going to be able to get to some really unique outcomes, some really unique medical reports that can be definitively tied, because we can attribute via blockchain without exposing anything. This is actual real data from real people. Maybe some better solutions. And I don't want people to feel like when they're going through a condition, just because it's so small and nobody else may be struggling with it, that they're ever alone. We want people to feel like they have resource, they have connection, and they have a way to find a solution for their problems.
Mm-hmm. Gosh, I can even see, like, depending how much information you guys want to share publicly, I could see JennyCo being like the healthcare index provider in like different areas, and being like a huge source of public data, but also packaging it up for clinical data studies. The consumer package companies for allergies. So you guys got to be excited about all the different revenue opportunities.
Oh, very much so. We have a very we have crypto as a part of the business, but we have a very traditional
Right.
side of the business too.
Mm-hmm.
Selling of tests and connection with telehealth medicine and things that will drive traditional revenue, which is so nice to me. That's a very wonderful place to be. And that's where I think crypto needs to get to, is that it's a
Yeah.
business that functions, and crypto and blockchain are a piece of it, but we are not a crypto company. We use it because that's how it facilitates our exchange of value and how people can get their data into systems, but we don't view ourselves that way. So yeah, I am really excited to see what this could do. You mentioned the data piece and the sort of information that could come out of it. And my mind has gone down that path so many times already. I'm like, wow, if we actually get a good amount of people in this app, we will be able to start zero. You could do a state by state breakdown. You could even take a state and break down into area codes, and the people who are willing to contribute their data to that study can really start to show what's happening in an area. Because we see things in general in this country. We'll see like a giant swath of where obesity may be the biggest challenge for certain parts of the country, but we don't really have granular information. It just is. They're like, oh, here it is. And it's like, well, why? And who is it? And where is the biggest problem coming from? Which area has increased the most? Which one has decreased? So the data piece of the visualization of the outcomes is very exciting to me. I've always been kind of borderline obsessed with tracking different forms of data to arrive to different outcomes. So yeah, I think that piece is going to be very cool. I think that research universities and stuff it'll be great partnerships to have with those groups who are looking to have access to very fresh, relevant data so that they can do better research and have better outcomes.
Yeah, I think that's really what it's all about. So I was one of the early adopters, if you want to call it, or test subjects. So I still need to drop my envelope in the mail and get my results back. Can you talk about a little bit of the onboarding process yet?
Oh, so within the app, there's a couple of ways it's going to work. We will crawl, walk, run, and the initial way that this test that you got with our first NFT launch, which by the way, we're going to be doing another one here very soon. That test, so you'll get back a result that will be via PDF. And so with that, you'll basically be able to upload it into the system. Now, where we're getting to is having it fully integrated so that when you get your result, it actually just comes straight into JennyCo. So that's where the data will live, that's where it will come into, and that's how, it will be more accessible for the insights and that sort of thing versus just a PDF file that then has to get kind of broken down and looked at in various components. So we really want to streamline that process. We want people to be able to be like, oh yeah, you know what, I do want to do a allergy test, or a hormone test. I want to know what my hormone levels are. And we want that data to come right back into the system for them to make it as easy as possible for them to access, use it, and monetize it if they so choose.
Yeah, super useful. As far as do you want to get into a little bit of like why crypto is like enabling this model as a tool for you guys to really enhance your offering, I guess is how I put it.
Yeah, for sure. It's interesting. When we first were working on this model, we had just one or two people say, well, why don't you just use regular currency? And beyond the challenges of then being in multi countries and dealing with all these different fiat currencies and the transactions thereof, that just did not, that wasn't going to work for us from a cumbersome level. But furthermore, because of the way that our data pairs with the currency inside of our system, so as somebody's sending their data into one of these pools to be mined, it's coming with the crypto. It's essentially this packet that shows, the ownership, whose it is, it validates it. So to us, it's a very big utility. And furthermore, as we have aspirations to be in more and more places, working off of a cryptocurrency that can work seamlessly anywhere, as long as someone has access to the internet, is of great benefit to us, especially when we think about developing countries where people may be unbanked. And that's a common thing. Like there's even a decent percentage of Americans who are unbanked. So you can't force people down a path that they don't have access to use. And so we're hoping that through cryptocurrency and the ability for it to be more fluid in the places that it can be transferred into, or the types of currencies it could be transferred into, that it becomes a way for people to truly get some access to some money that they maybe not have had before. So for us, it was a must-have. It wasn't a nice to have. It actually is very important in how the whole system will run.
Yeah, I think once people or like non-crypto users latch onto this idea of the incentive structure that Web3 and crypto offers, I think that's where we're going to see this next mass adoption of crypto. And you're going to be one of those companies where you're really providing solutions that are important to the user, the patient, everyday lifestyle that we need help with. So congratulations on what you guys have built so far. We're super excited of your potential. Definitely. So another reason why I invited you on today is we are featuring you somewhere within the magazine, next edition of Goose. So we'll let that be a surprise. And so we are appreciative on that partnership with you guys too. So you kind of shared a little bit of like how to follow along and get in touch. Is there any like final call to action that you may have for the audience?
No, I would just say, please just follow us on our socials. Like that's great. We want more community. That's where you'll be able to find out when you can actually download the app and get into it yourself. We'll also be releasing another NFT here soon, and it'll most likely be very similar to our last one, which is a bundled approach where there will be a test of some sort. The last one we did was a genetic test. This one might be a food allergy test. Mentioned that a couple of times in this call, so I feel like maybe it's going to be food allergy. And then some digital art and some tokens. And so we'll be launching that here very soon as well. And so to be aware of that and be able to get one, we did sell out of our last one rather quickly. So we'll follow us, and we'll be able to let you know when you can get into that. And then that also provides you a really quick and easy way to get into the app. So buying one of the NFTs, getting some data on yourself, and also already getting some tokens to play with is a wonderful way to then get into the app and be able to start really taking some action with it.
Almost there. Well,
Almost
thank you so much
there.
for joining us, Jenny. Appreciate your time. And like I said, we couldn't be more excited for you. And it's neat to see the community like just building this anticipation as well. So
no, it's been great. Thank you, Charlie. Thank you for all your
support. See you in the
support.
metaverse soon. You bet.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. You take care.
Take care.
So I'm going to share because it will cut both of us out, but basically the JennyCo NFT, and it'll be kind of cool to see what the next one looks like. But here's the first one real quick, and I'll be right back. So yeah, that one's pretty cool. There, you can definitely see how they're really embracing the DNA sequence and digging deep. And Jenny didn't get into it too much, but this new testing system that they're using is like 500 times, no, 5,000 times more in depth. I forgot to ask that one little detail, but it's on their website. But it's a lot more extensive of a test and more valuable, obviously, both for us and if we're leasing that data out for rewards and compensation. Yeah, so definitely one to follow, JennyCo.com and JennyCo.io. We'll be tagging all their socials. We did upgrade all of the capabilities through our StreamYard platform. So this is literally going out on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube now, Twitter, and of course, E360 TV. We just got the analytics back, so we're really appreciative of you, the audience. And anytime you want to engage with us on the next show, you can put that in comments, and can answer any questions on the fly, or just put them in now, and we'll be sure to follow up with you and get those questions for you, or questions answered for you. But thanks again, and we'll catch you next time.